Imagine standing in a dark cave, the air thick with silence, the only light coming from a flickering torch. You're not alone. You're surrounded by shadows, but something is watching you. The walls are not blank. They are covered in color. Deep reds, muted browns, and streaks of ochre. These are not random marks. They are stories waiting to be told. The figures are not just animals. They are symbols, rituals, perhaps even maps of the world as they understood it. They are the first attempts at capturing the imagination. In this silence, in this darkness, something profound was born. A way to share experience, to make meaning, to imagine the world beyond what we could see. This is not just art. This is the beginning of storytelling, the first echo of human imagination in the deep dark of history. So what exactly are we talking about? These are not just random images. They're stories etched into stone, frozen in time. We're looking at the first attempts by humans to make sense of the world around them. These paintings are not decorative. They're symbolic. They represent animals, people, and events, maybe even rituals or myths. They're the earliest known form of storytelling. The tools they used were simple: charcoal, ochre, animal bones. But the ideas they conveyed were complex. They were trying to capture movement, identity, and meaning in a way that could be understood by others. These images were not just art. They were a way of preserving knowledge, of passing down experiences across generations. They were a bridge between the past and the future, between the seen and the imagined. In these caves, we find the roots of our collective imagination. They are the beginning of what we call storytelling, our way of making sense of the world, of ourselves, and of each other. You might think cave paintings are just ancient art, but they're actually the first stories ever told. These images weren't just about what was seen, they were about what was felt, feared, and hoped for. Stories are the foundation of everything we know. They shape how we understand time, identity, and the world around us. These early paintings are the roots of that understanding. Every story we tell today is built on the same foundation: curiosity, imagination, and the need to connect. These ancient images are not just relics. They are the blueprint of our shared human experience. To ignore these stories is to ignore the very essence of what makes us human. They remind us that we are all storytellers, and that the past is not just history. It's alive in every word we speak. So next time you hear a story, remember where it began. It started in a cave with a hand, a brush, and a dream that has echoed through time. The first sparks of storytelling flickered in the darkness of ancient caves, where humans etched their first dreams onto stone. These images were not just art. They were the beginning of a language that would shape the future of human thought. From 35,000 years ago in France to the depths of Sulawesi, these paintings are the oldest known traces of a shared human imagination. They are not random. They are stories told in the dark, meant to be seen by others. These cave paintings may have been the first pages of a universal story, one that would evolve into the oral traditions, written scripts, and digital worlds we know today. To look at these paintings is to see the first steps of a human mind reaching for meaning, connection, and expression. They are the heartbeat of our shared past, echoing through time. In those dark, ancient spaces, the first storytellers wove meaning from silence, and in doing so, they laid the foundation for all that would come after. Imagine you're in a dark cave and you see a picture on the wall. It's not just a picture. It's a story. A story about animals, people, maybe even something magical. That picture is not just art. It's a way to remember and share what happened. Maybe the people who made it were telling a story about a hunt, or maybe they were trying to make something happen. When you draw something, you're not just making a picture. You're making a message. These early people were sending messages to others, long before they had words. So when you see a cave painting, you're not just seeing a picture. You're seeing the start of something big, something that helped humans imagine, connect, and share. To create a cave painting, the first step was to find the right place. These were not random spots, but sacred sites, hidden, sheltered, and often deep within the earth. They chose locations that felt special, almost spiritual. Some caves had natural formations that seemed to guide their hand. Others had echoes that made the silence feel alive. The surface was often uneven, so they had to adapt. Some used their fingers directly, while others carved small tools from bone or stone to help them shape the pigments into the wall. The goal was not just to make a mark, but to prepare the surface for the colors. They understood the material they were working with, the way light would hit it, and how the pigments would bind to the rock. This was the beginning of a story, a place where they could leave something behind, something that would outlast them. A way to speak to the world long after their voices had faded. Once the outline is set, the artist must decide on the composition. They think about where to place figures, how they interact, and what emotions they should convey. Every line drawn contributes to the story being told. Next, the artist begins to fill in details. They add texture to the animal's fur, depth to the landscape, and subtle shading to create volume. This is where the world of the painting comes to life. Each mark is deliberate, each stroke a part of a larger narrative. The artist is not just drawing an animal. They are shaping a moment in time, a scene from a story that will live for thousands of years. This process, planning, executing, and refining, is not just about art. It is about memory, ritual, and the transmission of knowledge. The artist is preserving a story that will echo through time. The twist comes when the artist doesn't just depict the animal, but also adds a human figure. This figure is not a hunter, but a shaman, a spirit, or a mythic being. It's a bridge between the animal and the human world. This figure is not separate from the animal. It's part of the same story. It suggests that the animal is not just prey, but a symbol, a power, a teacher. It's a shift from mere representation to symbolic meaning. This moment is a revelation. The artist is not just copying nature. They are reimagining it. They are weaving a world of ideas, of gods, of ancestors, of the unknown. The animal becomes a character in a story that transcends time. This is the birth of storytelling. It's not just about seeing, but about understanding. It's about connecting with something greater than ourselves. The cave becomes a stage, and the wall becomes a page on which the first stories are written. Beneath the surface of these ancient walls lies a rhythm of human thought, a pulse of creativity that defies time. These paintings are not just art. They are the first echo of a mind reaching out, trying to make sense of the world. The science of these markings is as much about what they show as what they hide. Every line, every color, every gesture is a clue, a fragment of a larger story that we are still trying to piece together. The pigments themselves tell a story of resourcefulness and adaptation. From charcoal to crushed minerals, these materials were chosen not just for their color, but for their meaning, their connection to the world around them. There's a quiet poetry in the way these early humans used the cave as a canvas. They transformed stone into a space for thought, for ritual, for memory, a place where the boundaries between the physical and the imagined began to blur. This is not just the birth of storytelling. It's the birth of consciousness itself. These marks, these gestures, these silent dialogues with the world around them are the first signs of a mind that was learning to speak. Imagine a world where every story was told not with words, but with color and shape. The cave paintings weren't just art. They were the first stories, carved into stone by hands that longed to make sense of the universe. These images were more than decoration. They were a language that didn't rely on sound, but on the silent, shared understanding between people who looked at the same images and saw the same world. To look at these images is to feel the weight of history. They're the first echoes of what we call storytelling, a practice that has shaped human culture for millennia. They remind us that stories are not just what we say, but what we create. In a way, we are still making the same kind of stories. We just use different tools. The cave painters use stone and pigment. We use screens and voices. But the purpose is the same: to make meaning, to connect, to remember. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. You can't remember what you had for breakfast, but you can still recall the words of a poem you read years ago. Language doesn't just shape thought. It reshapes memory itself. Before writing, memory was a fragile thing, passed from mind to mind like a whisper in the dark. There was no record, no way to hold on to the past beyond the present. But then came the written word, a kind of magic that allowed thoughts to live beyond the body, beyond the breath, beyond the brief flicker of a moment. Language became a vessel for the past, a bridge between the ephemeral and the eternal. To write was to preserve, to immortalize, to remember. And so, with every word put to paper, humanity carved its story into time, ensuring that what was once fleeting would never be lost again. We are talking about the moment when humans first realized that memory could be captured, not just recalled. It was not just the act of writing, but the realization that words could stand in for thoughts, that meaning could be preserved beyond the fleeting breath of the present. This was not a sudden leap, but a quiet revolution. A shift from oral traditions, where stories were passed from generation to generation, to something more permanent. A shift from the voice of the storyteller to the silence of the page. The written word was not just a tool for recording facts, but a way of shaping thought itself. It forced humans to slow down, to articulate, to think in structures that could be shared and preserved. With writing came the possibility of forgetting, of losing the present, of holding on to the past. It was a paradox, a means of remembering, yet a way to distance ourselves from the immediacy of experience. We are talking about how language reshaped not just memory, but the very way we experience time, reality, and our place in the world. It is the foundation of every story, every idea, every truth we have ever tried to keep. You think memory is just your own? But it's not. Every word you read, every story you hear, is a thread in a tapestry that others have woven. You're not just a passive observer. You're an inheritor of a fragile, evolving history. When you read, you're not just consuming information. You're participating in a centuries-old act of remembrance, preserving voices, ideas, and experiences that might otherwise be lost. The written word is more than a tool. It's a lifeline. It allows us to reach across time, to hold on to the past, and to imagine the future. Without it, memory becomes a series of fading echoes. You might not realize it, but every time you read, you're helping to shape the world. The words you absorb become the thoughts you think, the actions you take, the stories you carry forward. To ignore the written word is to risk losing more than just knowledge. It's to risk losing the very fabric of what makes us human. Memory is not just about remembering. It's about being connected to something greater. So yes, you might not think you're doing much, but every word you read is a secret act of preservation. It's a quiet rebellion against forgetting. And it's happening right now, in the silence between your thoughts. Before writing, memory was a living thing, passed from mouth to ear, from hand to hand. It was fragile, fleeting, and bound to the human voice. Then came the scribe, the first architect of memory, etching symbols into clay, stone, and papyrus. The world began to preserve itself. With writing, history could be recorded, wars could be remembered, knowledge could be passed down, and the past could be made real. But writing also introduced a new kind of forgetting. When the ink faded, the symbols crumbled, and the memory of the scribe itself was lost. The written word is both a monument and a tomb. It preserves, but also distorts. And in preserving, it alters the memory it seeks to hold. Imagine you're trying to remember a story, but your brain is like a bucket full of water. Every time you try to pour it out, some spills, but now you have a notebook. You write the story down, and it's like you saved the water in a cup. Before words, we remembered with our hearts. We sang songs, told stories, and held memories like treasures. But with words, we could put them in a box and keep them safe forever. But writing also changed how we think. Now we remember by words, not by feelings. We don't just remember a song, we remember the words to it. It's like the music is gone, but the words stay. So words are like a bridge between our minds and the world. They help us remember, but they also shape how we think. They are powerful, but they're not the same as the memories we carry in our hearts. Before the first word was ever etched onto stone or scrawled onto papyrus, memory was a fragile thing, dependent on the mind, fleeting, and often lost to time. Human memory, like a river, flows and fades. It carried the weight of entire civilizations, but without a record, it could be reduced to nothing, like water disappearing into the earth. To preserve what was remembered, early societies devised symbols, images, and sounds, tools to capture the ephemeral and give it shape, form, and permanence. This act of inscription was not merely recording. It was an act of faith, a belief that the past could be saved, that memory could be made to endure. The first word, then, was more than a sound. It was a bridge between the past and the future, between the known and the unknown, between what was and what might be. The first step was the act of choosing. Once a word was spoken, it had to be fixed in form, given a shape that could outlive the moment. This was not just writing. It was a kind of time travel, a way to freeze sound in stone so that future minds could touch it as if it were real. To write was to impose order on the chaos of speech, to make the ephemeral permanent, to give the fragile a chance to endure. This act of inscription was not just a technical process. It was a kind of alchemy, turning breath into stone, memory into monument. In this way, language did not just preserve memory. It transformed it, made it something that could be passed down, studied, questioned, and reimagined. The third step is where the clever twist truly unfolds. Writing doesn't just record memory. It restructures it, giving it new shape and meaning. It transforms the fluid, ephemeral nature of thought into something fixed and permanent. By fixing memory in time, writing allows for reflection, revision, and reinterpretation. It's not just a tool for remembering. It's a means of shaping reality itself, of creating a shared past that can be revisited and reimagined. The clever twist, then, is not just in the act of writing itself, but in the way it redefines the very nature of memory. It turns the past into a text, a story that can be read, debated, and rewritten. And so, writing becomes more than a record of memory. It becomes a form of power, a way of controlling the narrative, of defining who we are and who we were, and who we might become. Underneath the weight of history, language is not just a tool, but a kind of neural architecture, shaping how we store and recall the past. Studies show that when we write, our brains activate different regions than when we speak, as if memory is being encoded in a different syntax. The act of writing itself becomes a memory, a kind of ghostly imprint that outlives the moment it was made. This is why writing is more than just recording. It is a form of cognitive offloading, a way to free the mind to think beyond the immediate. To write is to build a bridge between what is and what might be, between the known and the unknown, between memory and imagination. And in that bridge, we find the essence of human thought. How we remember, how we tell stories, how we carry the past into the future. Imagine a memory as a candle flickering in the dark. It burns bright, but it's fragile, and without a hand to hold it, it dies. Language is the hand that keeps it alive, shaping the flame into something that can be passed from one person to another. Without language, memories fade like smoke, dispersing into the air before they can be shared. With words, they take form, become echoes that can be heard by others, even across time and distance. This is not a metaphor, but a truth. Language does not just capture memory. It transforms it, making it durable, portable, and communal. It turns the ephemeral into the eternal, the personal into the shared. So, in a way, we are all candle makers, using language to preserve the fleeting light of our thoughts. We are not just remembering, we are building a bridge between the past and the future. And in that act, we are both the keepers and the inheritors of a vast, luminous archive, written not in ink, but in the enduring power of words. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. Imagine a world where knowledge is locked away, hidden from the masses. Only a few hold the power to read, and the rest are left in the dark. Then, in the 15th century, something changed. A machine was born that would shake the foundations of society and spread ideas like wildfire. This was not just a tool. It was a revolution, a way to bring knowledge out of the shadows and into the hands of the people. The printing press didn't just print words. It printed ideas, questions, and the seeds of change that would shape the modern world. This is the story of how a simple machine became the catalyst for a movement that would change history forever. So what exactly are we talking about? It's not just a machine. It's a revolution in how we think, how we learn, and how we connect. The printing press was the first steps toward making knowledge accessible to everyone. Before this, knowledge was rare, controlled, and mostly locked away in monasteries or the hands of a few scholars. It was a privilege, not a right. The printing press changed that. The printing press allowed for the mass production of books. Ideas could now travel faster, farther, and more widely than ever before. It was the spark for a new age of thinking. It wasn't just about books. It was about changing the way people saw the world. It made knowledge a shared experience, not a secret one. It was the first real step toward a more informed society. So, in short, the printing press wasn't just a tool. It was a force that shifted power, reshaped culture, and set humanity on a new path of discovery and understanding. You might think this is just a story about books, but it's really about power. Who controls information controls society. The printing press didn't just change what people read. It changed who could read and who could be heard. Today, when you scroll through your phone, you're continuing that same struggle. The printing press gave the public a voice, and we've never stopped fighting for that right. Democracy isn't just about voting. It's about knowing what's true. The printing press laid the foundation for that. Today, we're still building on it. One click, one share, one informed choice at a time. The next time you see a post or a news story, remember, you're part of the same conversation that started with Gutenberg. Your voice matters, and it's louder than ever. The printing press was not just a tool, but a revolution. It changed how people saw the world, and how they could shape it. It made knowledge no longer the privilege of the few, but the right of the many. Before Gutenberg, books were rare and expensive. Each one took weeks, maybe months to produce. Knowledge was locked away, guarded by those who controlled the means of its creation. With the press, books could be made in days, not months. Ideas spread faster than ever before. The first printed Bible, the Gutenberg Bible, was a turning point in human history. As more books were printed, more people had access to knowledge. The Renaissance thinkers, the reformers, the scientists, they all stood on the shoulders of this new power of the press. The printing press didn't just spread knowledge. It spread ideas, challenged authority, and sparked the birth of modern thought. It was the first great step toward a world where knowledge belonged to all. Imagine you're in a big room, and someone is handing out books to everyone. Before that, only rich people had books. Now, everyone gets one. These books were made by a special machine called the printing press. It copied words fast, so more people could read them. Before the press, books were made by hand. That took a long time. Now, people could read about the world and learn new things. With more books, more people started to think for themselves. They could question the world and learn from others. The printing press didn't just make books. It made ideas spread faster. And that changed how people saw the world. Before the first word was ever printed, there had to be a press. This was no ordinary machine. It was a fusion of art and engineering, designed to hold and shape the future of communication. At the heart of the press was the chase, a large wooden frame where the movable type was arranged. It was here that the message was physically formed, one letter at a time. Once the type was set, the press was ready to do its work. The operator would press down on the handle, and the heavy plate would force the inked type against the paper, creating imprint with startling clarity. The process was slow by modern standards, but it was precise, deliberate, and transformative. Each print was a step closer to making knowledge accessible to all, not just the privileged few. The next step in the printing press's process is the transfer of ink from the inkwell to the type. A small lever is pulled, which lifts the ink roller, pressing it against the type to leave a thin layer of ink. Once the ink is applied, the press moves forward, pressing the type into the paper. This creates a clear, crisp impression of each letter, ready for the next piece of paper to be fed through. The paper is then lifted and the type is raised again, allowing the next sheet to be placed in position. This careful, rhythmic movement ensures that each page is printed with precision. Each press cycle takes only a few seconds, but the combination of precision and repetition allows thousands of pages to be printed in a single day. This was a revolutionary shift in the speed and scale of knowledge production. This mechanical process, though simple in design, transformed the way ideas were shared. It made knowledge more accessible, more permanent, and more widely available than ever before. The true genius of the printing press lies in the way it turns the physical act of printing into a mechanical marvel. The press is not just a tool, but a system that relies on the delicate balance of pressure and alignment. As the press applies pressure, the inked characters are transferred from the type to the paper in a single, decisive motion. This is the moment where the invisible becomes visible, where words take form and knowledge is made tangible. This twist is not just a technical detail, it's a reflection of the press's underlying philosophy. It's about making knowledge not only accessible, but also reliable and uniform, so that every copy of a book is as good as the next. By perfecting this process, Gutenberg and his successors transformed the press from a crude tool into a powerful instrument of change. It wasn't just about printing more, it was about printing better, and printing for everyone. The printing press wasn't just a machine. It was a network of gears and ink, a symphony of motion and material. Each press was a complex dance of pressure and precision, translating thought into form. The typefaces themselves were crafted by hand, each letter a delicate balance of art and utility. The most skilled artisans could produce hundreds of letters a day, each with its own unique weight and curve. Each press required a steady hand and a trained eye, a master of the trade who could align the letters perfectly, ensuring clarity and consistency in every printed page. The mechanics of the press were simple in design, but its impact was monumental. It was not just the invention of a machine, but the awakening of an idea. That knowledge could be shared, not hoarded. The press transformed the world by turning the invisible into the tangible, turning thought into text, and text into power. It was the foundation of a new kind of civilization, built on the printed word. Imagine a world where only a few people can read, and knowledge is locked behind expensive, hand-copied books. The printing press changed that, like a factory for ideas, mass-producing thoughts for the masses. Before the press, knowledge was like a rare spice, difficult to acquire, expensive, and held tightly by the few. The press turned it into something everyone could taste. The printing press didn't just spread knowledge. It changed how we think. It was like giving everyone a voice, a way to speak, write, and be heard in a world that once only listened to the elite. In the end, the printing press was more than a machine. It was an idea, a spark that ignited the fire of enlightenment and set the world on a new course. One that no one could unsee. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end. I found a box of old photos in the attic, yellowed and fragile, each one a whisper from the past. They held the weight of time, the shape of memories that had long since faded from our minds. Now, I scroll through my phone, and the past is just a tap away. Perfect, clear, and waiting. It's like we've traded the weight of memory for the lightness of a pixel. But what happens when the screen dies? What remains of the lives we've lived, if not stored in the cloud? Are we becoming a species that remembers only through data? We used to keep our memories in stories, in faces, in the echoes of voices. Now, we keep them in files, in servers, in the dark corners of the internet. And in this new kind of memory, are we losing something essential? Something that can't be uploaded, shared, or saved, only lived? We're talking about more than just saving photos or videos. We're looking at how memory itself might one day be stored, accessed, and even altered through technology. It's not just about preserving the past. It's about redefining what it means to remember. What happens when our memories become data, and data becomes us? This isn't just about convenience. It's about identity. How much of who we are is tied to the stories we remember, and how might that change if we can rewrite them? We're standing at the edge of a new kind of history, one that's not just written, but stored, and perhaps even rewritten. What does that mean for the way we live, love, and lose? This is not a future. It's already here. We're just beginning to understand what it means to remember in a world where memory is no longer just in our heads. You might think your memories are safe, locked in your mind, but they're also fragile, fading like old photographs. What if the next big loss isn't a fire or a flood, but the quiet erosion of time itself? We remember because we care. The way we hold on to the past isn't just about nostalgia. It's about who we are, what we've lost, and what we hope to preserve for those who come after us. Digital memory is more than a tool. It's a mirror. It reflects who we are, what we value, and how we choose to leave our mark in a world that is always moving forward. When we outsource our memories to technology, we're not just storing data. We're deciding what to keep, what to forget, and what to let go of. That power is both a gift and a risk. In the end, the future of memory isn't just about what we remember. It's about who we choose to remember, and how we ensure that no one is left behind in the march of time. We used to remember by the glow of a candle, by the echo of a voice, by the scent of a home. Memory was fragile, personal, and tied to the body. Then came the books, the photographs, the letters, tools to hold memory in place, to make it tangible. We built archives, but they were still vulnerable to time and loss. Computer changed everything. We could store more, search faster, and even simulate memory. But with each step forward, we lost a bit of the soul in the process. Now, in the age of the cloud, memory is no longer confined to the mind or the page. It's everywhere, but often out of reach, buried in data or sold to the highest bidder. The past is stored in silicon, but the future is unclear. Will we remember better, or will we forget the cost of keeping everything? Imagine your brain is like a big notebook. Every memory you make is like a page you write down. But now, instead of just your brain, you can also write your memories in a computer. Some people say, I want to remember everything. But remembering everything is like carrying a huge backpack. It might slow you down, and you might forget what's important. So, instead of trying to remember everything, we're learning to remember what matters. We're teaching our brains to pick and choose, like a smart kid who only writes down the best parts of their day. But there's a catch. If we let computers hold our memories, we might forget how to remember on our own. Like when you stop drawing, you stop seeing the world with your own eyes. So maybe the future of remembering isn't about remembering more. It's about remembering better, with our brains and with the help of tools that make us smarter, not just stronger. It all starts with a device, a phone, a tablet, a computer. These are the gateways to our digital memories, the first point of contact with the vast archive of our lives. Each device is a repository, a silent witness to our moments. It holds photos, videos, messages, fragments of our past, waiting to be accessed, preserved, or forgotten. This connection is more than technical. It's a bridge between the physical and the virtual, a way to ensure that our memories are never truly left behind. And so, with a simple click or tap, the journey begins. The setup is the first step, the foundation upon which our digital memory is built, and the beginning of a quiet revolution in how we remember. When we speak, the sound waves travel through the air, vibrating the delicate membranes inside our ears. These vibrations are translated into electrical signals, which then travel through the nervous system to the brain, where they are processed into meaning. In the digital world, sound is captured by microphones that convert vibrations into electrical impulses. These impulses are then digitized, turning them into a series of ones and zeros, a language the machine can understand. When we need to recall, a request is sent to the server, which retrieves the data and converts it back into sound. The machine breathes life into the memory, making it real again for a moment. This process is silent, precise, and invisible. Yet, it is the foundation of how we preserve and remember. It is the quiet machinery of memory, running in the background of our lives. So, the system doesn't just store data, it learns from it. It starts to understand what's important, what's fleeting, and what's worth keeping. It begins to shape the memory, not just save it. It uses patterns, not just words. It knows that a face is more than a collection of pixels. It's a story, a history, a connection. It starts to feel the weight of the past, even if it can't remember it. But here's the twist. The system doesn't just remember. It also forgets. It doesn't erase, but it lets some things fade, some things shift. Some things become part of a larger, more abstract truth. This is how we remember, not by capturing every moment, but by letting the machine help us make sense of it. It becomes a mirror, not a recorder. And in that mirror, we see ourselves differently. The future of memory isn't about preserving everything. It's about understanding what we truly need to keep and what we can let go of. It's about the quiet, almost sacred act of remembering through a machine. There's a quiet hum beneath the surface of this digital memory revolution. A science of preservation, retrieval, and even transformation. It's not just about storing data anymore. It's about how we choose to remember. Neuroscience is now collaborating with AI, trying to decode how human memory works. The way it fades, the way it distorts, the way it fills in the blanks. It's a science of loss, as much as it is of preservation. There's a growing field called neuroprosthetics, where implants are being tested to restore lost memories or even enhance recall. It's a science that walks the line between healing and control, between therapy and transformation. But in all this, there's a quiet question that lingers. What happens when memory becomes a commodity? When the past is no longer just a collection of experiences, but a product that can be bought, sold, and even altered? The science is humming, but it's not just about the future of memory. It's about the present, how we're already shaping the way we remember, and how that shape will define the way we live. Imagine your brain as a dusty attic filled with boxes of memories, some sealed with tape, some left open, and some forgotten in the corner. Every time you think, you're sifting through the dust, trying to remember what you once knew. Now, think of the internet as a giant, never-ending library, built not by humans, but by algorithms, where every memory is stored in a way that's always accessible, but rarely understood. The difference is that in the attic, you have to dig for what you want, and in the library, it's always there. But you might not know where to look or what to ask for. But here's the twist. The library doesn't just remember. It forgets, too. It can lose things, or change them, or make them into something entirely new. Something you never meant to remember. In the end, both the attic and the library are just places where we try to hold on to what matters. And sometimes we're not sure if we're remembering or just imagining. Comment this emoji if you made it to the end.